Houston Dynamo, Portland Timbers, Sporting Kansas, Los Angeles Galaxy,
Pitch Pass,
Toronto FC, Salt Lake, Chicago Fire, Columbus Crew, FC Dallas, New York Red Bulls.
Pitch Pass, your all-access credential to the people that matter in MLS. Here's your host, Greg Roche.
Hello, welcome to another edition of Pitch Pass. Thank you so much for downloading. Really appreciate it. And not just me anymore. We've got a whole staff of people behind the scenes working on the show. All right, two other people. But we are doing our best to make Pitch Pass as interactive for you as possible. So make sure you check out pitchpass.com. Gives you a little preview of who we're going to have on upcoming episodes if you want to ask a question for yourself. We're getting some good guests now, thanks to some people behind the scenes. So if you want to chime in, get your thoughts aired out, you have a question for maybe your favorite player who could be on the show, get it all to us, pitchpass.com. You can follow us on Twitter as well, at PitchPass. Those are really the best places to go. Once you get to pitchpass.com, you can find out all the ways you can download the podcast. If you're doing it through iTunes, we only ask you one favor. Well, two favors. Tell other people. That's if you're doing iTunes or not. If you're doing any of the downloading, tell other people. If you're doing it on iTunes, please rate the podcast at the very least, and hopefully even go one step further and leave some comments. We've got the new head coach of the New York Red Bulls. I haven't heard any interviews where you've actually heard him speak, so this could be a first. I'm not sure, but it'll be good to talk to him. He's a good friend of mine, and I'm glad he's the coach, and got some questions for him because he's got some situations that he's walked into. Mike Petke will join us in the second segment, but first, we go over everything that happened Wednesday versus Honduras. I'm talking about the U.S. national team with ESPN analyst Alexi Lalas. He's first up on Pitch Pass. Alexi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm all good.
I'd like to first thank you before we go with any of the in-depth analysis that you're known for. First, I'd like to thank you for bringing the hashtag MLS snob to the forefront of American soccer. Thank you, sir.
Well, you know what? We all have our little contributions to the world, and if that's the one that I leave this earth with, then that's fine.
Well, hang on, Alexi. I said thank you for bringing it to the surface. I believe I was the one at pitchpass.com to begin the MLS snob movement. You're just the one with the clout to actually bring people to talk about it.
Well, listen, it's all fine and well to have an idea, but if you don't have a platform to sell it and to get that message out to the world, then it means nothing. So listen, you need me as much as I need you.
We've got MLS snobs listening to this podcast, obviously. This is an MLS-focused podcast, but maybe they're a little bit nervous or hesitant to come out of the closet and accept who they are, an MLS snob. So for those people, can we describe what an MLS snob is, especially as it applies to a Euro snob?
Sure. Well, I think we probably should first and foremost then define the Euro snob, and
yes.
Certainly any self-respecting MLS snob knows what the Euro snob looks like. We've encountered them in the past, and they are easy to spot because of the way they talk, sometimes the way they look. And certainly the way that they act. They believe that if it's not from Europe, it's crap, and that all good things regarding soccer, or in their case it would be football,
yes,
emanate from Europe, and many times often from England. And if it's not, then it's obviously of lesser quality. It's not worth the time, and certainly that is not something that a MLS snob believes. I believe an MLS snob.
Well, they're big fans. They're big fans of saying things like lads and boots and instead of cleats, mates. They love saying mates. It's just they love Manchester United, even though they've never actually crossed the Atlantic, let alone been in England, let alone been in Manchester. But their favorite team of all time is Manchester United.
Yeah, I mean it's almost a lifestyle or culture choice, and we've been around, and you all know that styles and fads come and go, and what was once considered cool back in my time back in the 80s, I would not be caught dead with. But so they're on the surface, they talk about their commitment to the sport and their love of the sport and all that kind of stuff. And the reality is they're much more infatuated and in love with being a fan of the sport and what that entails in terms of the way that you act and, like I said, the way that you talk.
So for me, the MLS snob kind of takes the Euro snob and kind of tweaks their ear and kind of turns it all around of, hey, you know what? Okay, you can be a Euro snob, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to support the league in our backyard. I'm going to support the club that is closest to me, whether it's my hometown or a few hundred miles away. And I'm going to be passionate about the sport in this country, because I don't know if you know this or not, Euro snob, but we live in this country, not in Europe.
Well, I think there should be some things that we say first and foremost. You can be an MLS snob and completely love the beautiful game and have a team in England. That's absolutely no problem. But I think MLS snobs have a perspective. And through that perspective, when it comes right down to it, they oftentimes prefer MLS because of some things that make it pretty unique. And I think that they like to be able to pull back some of the style that's oftentimes gets mistaken for quality, and really examine what goes on the field. And oftentimes, if you do that, which is very difficult, I recognize that it's very difficult, but if you do that, I think that MLS many, many times comes up not only as good, but in some cases better.
Okay, so now this is the point I wanted to get to before we can move on. And by the way, I think you brought up a great point. I feel like MLS snobs can like European soccer, where I feel like Euro snobs feel like they can't like the MLS. I don't know why that can be, or why that has to be for them.
I think that if they admit it publicly, somehow their hipster Euro snob credentials will be taken away, and maybe in their little clique of Euro snobs, they won't be taken as seriously, because how could you possibly, if you find anything enjoyable or find any type of quality in what is obviously inferior? So that's just like anything in high school or anything else. You got to have the courage to step above that and say, this is what I believe, even if other people might laugh at you for it.
So you stirred up a hornet's nest last week on Twitter when you threw it out there about your views on MLS and how it applies in the case of this argument, the Premier League. And you took a lot of grief for it. You shut it down, which I thought you handled it really well. And then on Saturday, when the league started again, you stirred it up again with a great point of everything that I was saying over the course of the week, and you were telling me how the quality is better. I'm watching a match here that is absolute crap. And I forget, was it Norwich and somebody else?
Yes. Who were they playing? I can't remember who they were playing, but that's how memorable it was. You can't even remember.
Yeah.
Look, we in the United States, whether it's MLS or any of the leagues that we have here, we certainly do not have a monopoly on crap soccer. It is played every day all over the world. Oftentimes, and I've said this for years, I believe that MLS is the most competitive league in the world.
Yes.
And I want to say that one more time so people understand it is the most competitive league in the world. I didn't say it was the most entertaining. I didn't say it's the most expensive. But I think it is the most competitive because of the structure, because of the salary cap. You don't have the haves and the have-nots. And to be fair, many people believe that one of the reasons why EPL or other leagues around the world is enjoyable is because they have the haves and the have-nots. And we can certainly agree to disagree, but that has to be said when you're talking about MLS in the context of MLS. But there is plenty of horrible soccer that's played in the Premiership and other places around. And when you dress it up and call it EPL, and by the way, hats off to what the Barclays Premier League has done over the last 10, 15 years in terms of branding and making that brand equate to quality all over the world, whether it's the truth or not. We all know that perception is reality, and the perception, not just domestically in England, but all over the world, is that the EPL is the best league in the world. And we have some great teams and some great players. But when you really get down and look at it, when you talk about tactics, when you talk about technical proficiency, all of these different things, I think that there is a debate to be had. And it's not just clear that, this is the best league in the world, just simply because it's the most popular.
It's a great talking point, and I thank you for engaging me with it, and I also, again, thank you for bringing the hashtag MLS snob to the light of day. It was buried underground. You brought it to the surface. Thank you, Alexi.
Well, my work is not done, but I'll take. Thank you very much.
Let's talk about Wednesday, and let's talk about Honduras versus the U.S. national team. End of the world, Alexi. It's all over. Pack it in. Might as well not even play the last 9 matches.
Yeah, it's horrible. I'll tell you, I'm actually talking to you from my backyard, and I am looking up, and I'm pretty sure that there is a sky above. It is not falling. I think we are okay. Certainly not the best 90 minutes, and certainly not something that U.S. fans wanted to see, although I think when you look at Honduras, there were a lot of people that said, including myself, that we could very easily go down to Honduras and lose to them. Not because the U.S. is so horrible, but maybe the other way. Honduras is a very, very good team. And this hex right now, I cannot remember another hex where all 6 teams have been so equal. And I think we saw it yesterday in terms of the results.
I thought you were going to say you were in your backyard and you looked up and just over the fence, there was a Landon Donovan applying shaving cream to his beard and is ready to come back and be the man he was before.
Look, I keep a lookout when I'm off on my my daily runs. I actually have run into him a couple of times on my runs, but I haven't seen him lately. So he is deep in thought during this sabbatical, and it's going to be interesting to see how long it ultimately lasts, and maybe even more interesting to see what type of landscape it looks like from an international perspective for the U.S. team he returns to, and if Jurgen Klinsmann at that time feels that it's appropriate to bring him back in.
And I think that is a key point, and that's the question I wanted to ask you about Landon. I mean, a lot of people, obviously were up in arms talking about Landon after the results of the match on Wednesday. He chose to walk away, so let's not act like he's out in the wilderness and no one will he chose to be where he is. But the second question is, and this is the question I want to bounce off you, is one man, first of all, shouldn't make a difference, that big of a difference in the setup of a national team. And how does he fit back in if and when he does decide to come back? And how does Klinsmann use him?
See, this is where I disagree with many people, and I've already had this debate, especially over the last week, and certainly over the last 24 hours. I don't think that, regardless of the results, that if Landon Donovan comes back, and let's say he decides to come back in the summer, takes his time, does whatever he's going to do, and comes back in the summer, I think that Jurgen Klinsmann thinks long and hard. I don't think it's a slam dunk that automatically he comes back into the national team program, even if they are struggling. If you don't think that even Landon Donovan, as important as he is, coming into that team in the middle of qualifying or late in qualifying, is not going to have an effect on the dynamics that exist in a locker room and that ultimately manifest themselves on the field, then you don't know teams and you don't know it's not pettiness, it's just reality and it's human nature that exists in these locker rooms and with these teams. And it can be disruptive, and Jurgen Klinsmann is going to have to balance that with the reality that he also needs to get results.
And I also ask you that question looking at a guy like Josie Altidore who can't stop scoring when he's in the Netherlands. You put him in Jurgen Klinsmann's system, and he's kind of invisible for 90 minutes. And the same thing could conceivably happen when and if Landon comes back, correct?
Yeah, I mean, well, I've said before that the form is fallacy, and I know everybody, look, hedge your bets and everything being equal, of course you want a player that's playing and playing well at the club level. But it doesn't necessarily mean that when you bring him in, that is going to translate. And we've seen it time and time again where players are doing really well at the club level, and they're playing with different players, they're playing in a different environment, different formations sometimes, and it doesn't it's apples to oranges at times. And that's the situation that's happened with Josie Altidore. Now, if Landon Donovan comes in, if you look at Landon Donovan, there are times when he's playing with the national team and with his club team where he fades completely out of games. You don't see or hear anything from him. The difference between him and other players is that he will find that moment to do something big, and that's part of what makes him great. But I mean, even look at the Algeria game a couple of years ago. We always look at that as that goal, and it was an incredible moment. But he was absolutely invisible during that game, and that's something that has always been a knock on Landon, but ultimately he scores those big goals. And if Jurgen Klinsmann is dying to have that type of player, it's going to be hard not to bring him in. But I also know Jurgen Klinsmann thinks a lot about team chemistry and spirit and all the different things that we talk about that on the surface, it's very difficult to define, but they are important. And disrupting that, I think Jurgen Klinsmann, like I said, would think long and hard before doing something that he thinks may not be good for the group.
I know you're totally plugged into pop culture, so you'll get the reference I made on Twitter today. I asked if Landon Donovan was Jurgen Klinsmann's Jimmy Chitwood, and everybody's calling for his head. He's not getting the results you're looking for. And then as they take the vote to maybe oust him, Jimmy Chitwood, a.k.a. Landon Donovan, walks in and goes, thinking about playing ball again. One thing, Jurgen's the coach, I'm playing. If he's not the coach, I don't play. And then we revote, and everybody loves Jurgen Klinsmann again.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing after the game last night to see the reaction, and some of it is completely justified. Some of it's a little over the top, but I think that's actually a sign that things are going in the right direction when people are really, really worried and are expressing their opinions. The articles that are starting to emerge now, where people are talking about the possibility of Jurgen Klinsmann as an emperor who has no clothes, and was it all just a bunch of talk, and is there any real substance behind it? I see those starting to gain momentum and come out, but it's nothing that winning can't fix. And ultimately, I do believe that this team will qualify and get to the World Cup, which is where Jurgen Klinsmann is ultimately going to be judged.
Well, I was going to ask you where your head is with Klinsmann right now, but I think I'm going to go another way and ask you, does Klinsmann get the full hex to coach no matter what? If you're the USSF, he gets the keys for the entire run. Yes or no?
My short answer is yes.
Okay.
I was talking to Taylor Twellman about this the other day, and I just think that the amount of money that they have invested in him, they are knee deep with Jurgen, and I think even if it didn't go well, they will go down with the ship. And that would be a shame because, listen, nobody is guaranteed. Everybody's expendable. And ultimately, the most important thing is getting to the World Cup, with or without Jurgen Klinsmann. I think, I'm friends with Jurgen, and I talk to him about this at different times, so I want to be open and honest with that. But I tell him point blank, I don't think that he has done a good job of articulating what he wants this team to be. I think that at times what he wants this team to be is all fine and well, but it has taken him almost too long to realize that he might not have the tools in order to do that. And while I respect the fact that he wants to push this team forward, I think that there also has to be some pragmatism and some realism in the way that any coach approaches this U.S. team and not throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there's some very, very good traits that have gotten this team this far, and it doesn't mean you can't get better and progress, but to promise a more proactive and possession-oriented team and then not to deliver that, at least on any consistent basis, you have to be called out for that.
Now, when you say that, do you mean he hasn't been articulated to the media or to the actual squad?
I'm sorry, to the squad? Either way, it doesn't. Well, I mean,
I'm saying, do you think
there's two people that he has? I think he has to do it publicly. I think we have to understand exactly what he wants this team to look at and really drill down on the details. It's very short of details. There's some wonderful grand pronouncements about this is how we want to play, but the reality is, I want to see details. At this moment in the game, what should the U.S. be doing that makes it any different than anybody else? Because I think that there's a natural evolution and progression that would have happened regardless of who they hired. But to hire someone for that amount of money and then to make those promises and not to see that, that's always going to be part of the context and part of the conversation, as it should be. Because if you come in promising these big things and then you don't deliver them and you're paying all of this money to see that change, that's a problem. I think ultimately Jurgen Klinsmann right now is being a technical director. And that's fine, except it's very difficult to be the technical director and the head coach at the same time.
Let's talk about the center back pairing, the specific pairing that we saw on Wednesday, and then a little bit more big picture. I'll ask about Jeff Cameron first. Do you put any stock into the theory that this is difficult for him because for Stoke he is now a right back exclusively, and now is basically adjusting to a quote new position when he has to come back into the national team setup as a center back?
Yeah, I talked to Jurgen about all those players that go and play, and look, he wants them to play, and obviously he wants them to play at a high level. But he said it's certainly not ideal to have a guy like Jeff Cameron, who's certainly playing in the EPL, which is great, but not playing in the position that ultimately Jurgen Klinsmann, from his perspective, wants to see it. Now, for Jeff's perspective, it's great. It shows versatility, and he's playing. That's great, and he'll continue to make money. But from a selfish standpoint for Jurgen Klinsmann, he wants him to play, and that is problematic, especially when you throw it up against the fact that there aren't a lot of center backs right now, and that is a position right now that's worrisome. And when we started our first game of the final hex with a back four that had never played together, including three guys that are young and inexperienced, and at times it showed. But the problem is, I don't see an alternative. When people say, well, why didn't they start Bocanegra? Or Bocanegra wasn't going to change the game yesterday, the 2013 version of Bocanegra. So I don't see a lot of options in terms of what Jurgen Klinsmann could have done with the players that he has. And that gets back to the point where when I look at this team right now, they seem to be stuck in the middle of two different worlds, in this purgatory, where Jurgen Klinsmann wants to be something that they don't have the capability of being forward, but they want to not regress, but at least revert back to the team that they were, that has made them the American team with all the traits. And until they decide one way that they're going to go, I think they're going to suffer.
I thought going into this match that Omar Gonzalez would... It was a trial by fire, of course, and I'm going to take out the location. If you want to put it back in, by all means, as a reason. But the front line he was going up against were MLS guys. So I thought, okay, at least it's his first, big, meaningful U.S. match, but he's going up against guys that he has seen in the league that he plays in. This shouldn't be that overwhelming to him. It looked like that it was that overwhelming to him. Why did he struggle so much?
Well, that doesn't sound like a very MLS snobby thing to say. I mean, if he's going up against MLS guys, they can be very, very good. But
I'm saying it's not like he was going in or say Costa Rica and Brian Ruiz, where he has there's a Fulham, there's an EPL guy. He can look at Jerry Benson, he can look at Boniek Garcia, he can look at Carlo Costly and say, I play with these guys, I can handle these guys because I am an MLS guy. These are MLS guys. These are my peers, not guys I should be putting up on a pedestal.
Right. Well, Omar Gonzalez, I don't think was our problem last night. I actually don't think the back four was our problem. Ultimately, when goals are scored, it's usually from mistakes, and it usually involves defenders, and we always look at them. I think collectively the team had a real sense of a lack of urgency in their play, and a lack of organization, to be quite honest. And maybe that comes from the young, inexperienced players that haven't played a lot. I think Omar Gonzalez is the future in terms of the center back, but American fans shouldn't be expecting him to turn into a Lucio or all of a sudden be the Kaiser out there. I mean, he is what he is, and actually I think the way he gets better is realizing exactly what he is. And make no mistake about it, he will never be backdoored like that again, with not looking over his shoulder. He learned an incredible lesson. Yeah, it was on a big stage, and it's unfortunate, but I'd much rather have him learn it there, the team get to Brazil, and when they're playing in the round of 16 and a play breaks down, he takes that look over his shoulder to recognize if there's a guy coming. Those are all lessons that you learn, and you only learn them, unfortunately, at the highest level, and sometimes it can be painful.
Is the future? Are you the future is now guy, or are you a let's get the guy that's going to get the result, and then we'll worry about the future in the future?
I think that, like I said, the lineup that he put out there, I have absolutely no problem with. I don't buy the whole Carlos Bocanegra would have changed things, and like I said before, I just don't think that there's a whole lot of other options. I think you get him out there now going forward. In this next game, I hope he doesn't change a thing. I hope he goes out with the exact same 11. I hope he makes different substitutions and obviously at different times, and certainly I hope that they play better, and I fully expect that to happen. Because if you start changing it around, especially a back four that we know, the longer you play together, the better off you are. And with some young players, if you start taking them out and then they start thinking, geez, I'm done, and it was all my fault, you can mess very quickly with the psyche of some young players. Now, that's not a reason not to take them out, but once again, I just don't see that U.S. soccer fans need to understand there is no cavalry. They're not coming, okay? Landon Donovan is not coming. at least for the foreseeable future. Carlos Bocanegra in 2013, he is what he is right now, and I don't think that that's good enough right now to start. We just heard that Steve Cherundolo just got his knee worked on. Stuart Holden's far away from coming back. So this is what the team is, and it doesn't mean it can't be good and qualify and get to the World Cup and do well, but I think people seem to think that this team, people are waiting in the wings, and there's a very different team that ultimately is going to emerge. Nope, this is it.
What happened to our Germans, Alexi? Did they wilt in the heat of San Pedro Sula?
It was very strange because we talked about how it's such different. They're playing in the winter and then they have to come. I mean, take Timmy Chandler for example. He had an absolutely horrible game. Okay, now he's captized. I don't know if that's a good thing. If you base it just on that 90 minutes, obviously it isn't. But I think he's going to be fine, and I think he's going to figure it out very, very quickly. But he had never been in that situation. But that's the reality that Jurgen Klinsmann put him in. So people can say, well, he's been playing in the winter and he's never been down there in that type of environment. Well, you know what? That's what CONCACAF qualifying is. And this is, by the way, Jurgen Klinsmann's first go at this, too. So he's learning. And you hope that as all these players and the coaches are learning, that they are able to learn and get the results that ultimately lead them to the World Cup.
Is there a way that you can explain to the non-player what the difference is between taking the pitch in Europe, as you did in Italy, versus taking the pitch in a World Cup qualifier in a CONCACAF Central American country, and why, in a lot of ways, the Central American venue is just as, if not more, intimidating than the big European stage?
Sure. I mean, there's a level of or a standard level that kind of exists when you're either playing within Europe nowadays, or if you're playing, obviously, in a domestic league. Yes, teams have different advantages in that the stadiums are a little bit different here, but for the most part, you know what you're going to get. The highs are high, but the lows aren't that much low. Now, when you go and you play in CONCACAF and you're coming from, let's take Timmy Chandler, a guy who's playing in the Bundesliga, and you are playing in 90-degree incredible humidity with the type of grass that we saw the other day that aesthetically it looks great, but actually playing makes it very, very difficult to play. You're getting kept up at night. You have stuff being thrown at you. You're under constant security, and all of the different stories that we hear about these types of situations. And then you're also flying, major travel, all of that kind of stuff goes into making it a very, very difficult type of existence. And you get hardened ultimately, and you learn how to do it if you're going to be any good. And some of these players, it's just so early right now that they must be completely shell-shocked. When Timmy Chandler goes back to his team and tells those guys what he just went through, some of them aren't going to believe it.
Let's talk a little MLS before I let you go.
Sure.
Any team you want to throw out? Any team that you've got your eye on, that you're keeping a close eye on in preseason?
Well, I mean, look, New York is always going to be an interesting case study in what they're doing. I think hiring Mike Petke could be wonderful, and it could be a disaster, to be quite honest with you. I think the success of Mike Petke is going to be dictated by how he manages the relationship with Thierry Henry, because let's be very honest, Thierry Henry is pulling the strings right there. For example, if Thierry Henry had wanted Kenny Cooper and said, this is the best guy I've ever played with, and I just love playing with him, you can bet that Kenny Cooper would still be in New York. This is all being manufactured to give Thierry Henry the environment that he wants. And for Mike Petke, a young first-time coach, that's a very difficult environment to have to negotiate, to figure out how to manage that and get the most out of Thierry Henry without looking completely incapacitated in front of the rest of the players,
Alexi,
and emasculated in front of the rest of the players. So that's really going to be fun to see how that plays out.
Alexi, you know who we're talking to next on the show?
I know exactly who you're talking to.
Mike Petke. And I'm asking him that specific question about whether, because he's saying it's a salary cap issue, and that's why he had to go. I'm going to ask him specifically, is it a salary cap issue or is it a Henry can't play with him issue? And I'll be interested to see what his response is. I agree with you completely. I think of these MLS, this generation of MLS players who are now transitioning into coaching, this is the hardest transition because unlike an Olsen or a Kreis or a Jay Heaps, there is no superstar guy on that team that they had to kind of maneuver through. Whereas Petke's going to have to maneuver through some high-priced players that have nice resumes.
And if he doesn't get it right, bye-bye, see ya. You know, the old Spanish archer, elbow, bye-bye. He's going to be gone, and that would be a pity for him. But he knows what he got himself into. And by the way, if he gets it right, my God, he'll be the king. He will be the absolute king if he figures out how to get that thing going. There's going to be a lot of attention and focus on what's going on there, and they will make a change if they feel it is not going the right. I mean, look, Mike got the job, and I think it was deserved in terms of him being around there and doing everything that they asked. But it's no secret that they were looking at a lot of other people, and he was certainly not their number one choice. And if somebody became available and the team wasn't doing well, I don't think for a second that they would worry about pulling the plug.
I'm so glad you brought up Red Bulls because the team that I wanted to get your thoughts on was the team that just had a deal with the Red Bulls, and that's FC Dallas. How do you think that their front line looks now with the trades that they've made and also having Perez already in-house?
So what? They got Hasley, Perez, and Cooper now, right? They got to figure out how to work all that down. I mean, my thinking is
that Perez is going to play if he's healthy no matter what. And I think the other two guys are going to have to compete, and you're going to factor in Hasley's injury history. And I actually think that there might be still a little bit short in the front line if you factor that in.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Kenny Cooper, here's the problem with Kenny. First off, that kid can't catch a break. I mean, he scores 18 goals, and then he gets traded, and people are saying anyway, well, it's only because he played with Thierry Henry. Okay, maybe, whatever, but I'll be really interested to see how he comes out of this year, not just in terms of the numbers that he puts up, but the perception of Kenny Cooper as a player. Because we all know that Kenny is this player who we want to force to do something that he is just not comfortable doing. We want him to go up and post up top and be that guy because use his size, but he won't do that. He's got the softest feet ever. That's a good thing. I mean, his first touch is incredible for such a big man, but he likes to wander and go out wide and do that kind of stuff, and it frustrates people, and I'm sure it frustrated Thierry Henry and maybe the staff over there in New York. So how he is now reintegrated, I guess it would be, into Dallas, and if it translates. And going back to Mike Petke, it's all fine and well to talk about salary cap and all this kind of stuff, but that's still 18 goals, and that's 18 MLS goals, and MLS goals are not easy to come by. It's an apples and oranges thing when you go and get somebody from outside the league. You don't know if it's going to translate and those goals are going to come. So he's got to find a way to, if he does have all that salary cap, which he does, and plus allocation money, the deal only works if he is able to now go and turn that into something that comes in and starts and has an impact.
And if they can get Ferreira back to his MLS MVP form, then you're basically saying, all right, well, that was only Henry. He now has a playmaker who, at least for MLS purposes, is equal the caliber of Henry, and so there you go.
Yeah, well, we said that, and he did show glimpses of getting back there, but I think as Ferreira goes, so goes Dallas, and the ability, especially in this league, to have that type of guy. We've seen that once they do emerge, they can literally run the show, and there's not a lot of them, but when they are there, they can not only run the show but be very, very successful. But there's only a couple of them, and certainly you don't have depth and backups of guys that can come back then. And we saw what happened once he got hurt. I mean, it was complete devastation. The Breck Shea move is interesting. I think it was just toxic there for him, and he did not want to be there. I think it's a good business and a good move for Dallas, for the league, and for Stowe.
I was going to plug your podcast with Taylor, but you got the ESPN platform to do that. Let's talk about The Shot before I let you go, because I love that. I love that because it's unlike a lot of other podcasts, including this one. It's quick burst of here's 5 minutes of information. Here's some music stuff. Here's some soccer stuff, and I'm out. No harm, no foul. We can get out of there. So tell me about The Shot and where people can get a hold of it.
Well, it's called The Shot with Alexi Lalas, and you can. It's on Buzzsprout, and you can You can get it on iTunes and that kind of stuff, all the usual places, on Stitcher Radio, that kind of stuff. And basically, it's literally 2 minutes. And pretty much every day, I have my days where I'm doing something else. Pretty much every day, it's basically 3 different topics, 2 on soccer and 1 on music. And it comes, it goes. It's like a good shot. It goes down smooth and quickly, and you're off to face the day.
Lexi, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And also, I appreciate you bringing MLS Snob to the forefront. Just remember where you got it from when you keep passing it around through Twitter, all right?
All right. Well, long live the MLS Snobs, and my best to Mike Petke. Tell him I said hey.
Thanks, Alexi. See you later.
All right.
I love talking to Alexi because not only does he know his stuff, but he also does it in such a casual, friendly, engaging sort of way, even as he's tweaking you and tweaking you and tweaking you. At Alexi Lalas, if you want to follow him on Twitter. We said this earlier, at Pitch Pass, if you want to follow us on Twitter. At Petke Mike, although I don't know if he's going to respond, is how you can get in touch with our next guest through Twitter. He is the new coach of MLS, and apparently he's only got a few minutes. As we're recording this, there's some sort of blizzard coming in, and he's got to get on a flight, so we only have a few minutes with him. He is the coach of the New York Red Bulls. We teased him earlier. He's here now with us. Mike Petke, how are you, my friend?
Good, man. Long time. You doing well?
I'm doing great, although I will say it's a little weird having to call you coach now. Can I still just call you Mike?
Yeah, of course, man.
Okay.
Call me my man. Listen, I appreciate you making this as quick as possible. Our flight got changed because of the storm, and I'm literally at the board.
You guys are trying to sneak off to Florida before a blizzard hits New York City.
No. We're sneaking back to New York before we get trapped here.
Oh.
Yeah, so I gotta get in the plane momentarily, so let's rock this, dude.
Let me ask you something about the interview process. You were the interim coach for basically the entire offseason, and then you became the coach. Just walk me through the step-by-step process and your thoughts going from interim to head coach.
Well, to be honest with you, my thoughts never really wavered because when I was given the team on an interim basis, I've been with this team for so long and care about the organization that whether I was the head coach, the assistant coach, or whatever I was, when they put me in charge, I wanted to do the best possible to start the process of putting this team in the right direction. So from being named the interim coach to being named the coach, nothing changed, to be honest with you. It was just really an easy transition aside from all the crazy BS that goes with it. The paperwork, the budget, talking to agents. That's the only thing that changed. Was it hard for you to have that interim tag and try to make decisions not knowing what was going to happen moving forward? Well, it wasn't hard for me. The one thing that was difficult was if we were looking elsewhere for a coach, especially coming into preseason, I really wanted to know who that coach was and if I could speak with him, because I thought my thought process with this team is if I had them for a week and a new coach came in, if the new coach came in and didn't like what I did or was on a completely different wavelength as far as how we're going to play, we would have had to start from brand new, from scratch right then and there, and we have lost a week. So it was important for me. Like I said, I was never thinking along the lines of, I hope I'm the head coach. Not at all. My thought process was, whatever my situation is, I need to get this team on the right path. I'm going to throw a couple names out at you. And first, tell me if you spoke with them about coaching in MLS. And secondly, what were some of the things that you took away from conversations or at least observing them? First one is Hans Baca. No, I did not speak to Hans. Did you learn anything sitting beside him for a season? I learned many things. The one thing I will say is that doesn't sound like everything you learned was good, Mike. Listen. Everything you learn, whether good or bad, is a lesson and something that you could use for the future. I enjoyed my time as transitioning from a player to assistant coach very much for the most part, but that's in the past, and I'm a bit different than some people who were previously here. So I'm trying to stand my style, if you could say, in all aspects, from playing to personality on this team. The young coaches, your peers as players who are now head coaches in MLS. I'm talking about Ben Olsen. I'm talking about Jason Kreis. I'm talking about Jay Heaps. Ben Olsen told me to run as fast as I could, get out of it. I don't want to do it. And it was funny because I'm very good friends with Ben, and he knows my wife very well, very much as well. And she was down in Florida, and the first thing he said to her, he said, "You're not going to like your husband for the next year." And I said, "Stop." But no, Ben and I had a very candid conversation. I have a lot of respect for him. He's a phenomenal person, and was a phenomenal player, and he's turning out to be a phenomenal coach. Even though he is younger than me, it's still somebody in a way, that paved the way for someone like me. The chance that he took on him, showed that you don't have to be a world-renowned, reputation and coach. The person who can lead a team could be, an experienced coach sitting right in front of you who's played for the team. Jason Christ reached out to me. I had a very good conversation with him. He gave me phenomenal advice. Having gone through probably the toughest transition of any of the young coaches, literally stepping off the field midway through the season and becoming a coach. And now I have Robin Frazier, assistant coach, who is his first one, so we have that in common. And he gave me a lot of advice. I've not talked to Jay. I think we had a text message, congratulations type thing, but definitely Ben and Jason shed some light on things and really are supportive about it.
How much of an adjustment do you think it'll be for you? You were a very frank personality as a player, without being outspoken. You weren't a rebel rouser or somebody who started trouble, but if somebody asked you for your opinion, you gave it. How hard is it going to be to have to kind of play your cards close to your vest? You kind of already did it with me with the Hans Baca question, so it seems like you're learning of what I can say and what I can't say without compromising who you are.
Well, yeah, listen, the way I am is never going to change. I'm never going to waver from that, However, with the new responsibility, it's not, I can't be shooting off and being crazy, People know people know where they stand with me. I'm never going to sugarcoat it. Whether it's trading somebody or dealing with an agent or anybody, I'm going to speak my mind, but obviously I have the best interest of the club to think about, so I can't be getting myself in trouble and putting the club in any type of bad light. So without muzzling myself, I am more cautious in a way with the way I push things. As a player, it's easy. You're on the field, you're in the heat of it, and you could get a red card because that's passion and that's whatever. However, as a coach, with all these people below you and you're trying to lead them, if you make bad decisions, it reflects on them in a way and it reflects on the club, and I don't want that to happen.
So 3 personnel things before I let you jump on that plane. First, the Kenny Cooper situation. You've come out and said it's a salary cap issue. Everybody else who isn't a part of the situation, the rumbling is couldn't play with Thierry Henry, or Thierry Henry didn't really want to play with him. Which one is more truth?
The truth is exactly like we just talked a second ago about how I am and being honest, speak my mind. The truth is what the first thing you said, which is what I've said already a couple times. It was a salary cap situation. It has nothing to do with Thierry. It has nothing to do with any style or anything like that. We have an 18-goal scorer. I don't care what style a team plays. If you have a guy who scored 18 goals, we should do everything possible to keep him. And that's what we tried to do. Listen, the salary cap, hopefully in my time, will go up, and that's for the smart people at MLS, who do that, are going to figure that out, and it will at some point. But right now, salary cap is A. Someone like Kenny Cooper makes D, but you need to be at C. So you have to figure that out. So we weren't able to figure it out. It was almost impossible to, and that's why we had to do that.
I want you to talk to the Red Bull fans specifically. Roy Miller, he's played a prominent part in your setup in preseason. A lot of Red Bull fans will be like, why is Roy Miller still on this team after his playoffs of the last 2 seasons? Resell the Red Bull fans on Roy Miller so they can fall in love with him all over again.
I don't need to resell, to be honest with you, to the Red Bull fans. It's early in preseason. We are trying, giving everybody a fair shake. I know what Roy brings to this team. I know what his limitations are, just like every player has the highs and lows and abilities and limitations. We're 3-4 weeks maybe away from the first game. I'm losing track at this point, but maybe roughly 4 weeks away from the first game. What we see on the field the first week and a half now could potentially be far from what we see the opening game. So we are giving everybody a fair shake. Roy is a phenomenal professional. He has very good qualities. He's with the national team right now. That says, what kind of player he is. And we're going to fit the right people who gives us the best chances to win.
Where do you see Tim Cahill slotting in your setup right now? Is it up top or is it more in midfield?
I'm talking to a DC radio station. I'm going to divulge where I'm playing a key player. Roach, listen, I haven't seen you in a while, but you haven't changed, my friend. Listen, Tim is obviously a very important part of this team, both on and off the field. And the great thing about Tim is you could slot him in any number of positions, and he's going to be a professional, and he's going to work his ass off. So whether that's at forward, whether it's at midfield, whether that's outside, it remains to be seen. Like I said before, we're going to put him as well as all the players in the positions that benefit the team, regardless of who they are. So he's been on board. He's been phenomenal, and it's been a pleasure to work with him.
You brought up DC, so I will tell you the thing that lets us know that you are the right man for the job is DC United fans are like, that's the last person we wanted hired for New York Red Bulls is Mike Petke, which means you were the best hire for New York Red Bulls. Now, well, Mike, listen. I know you got to get on a plane, so now I'm just holding you this. You're going to owe me something mid-season to make up for this quick little conversation we're having.
Listen, what do you need, Roach? It seems to me you have everything. You're the DJ of a hit radio station. You're a phenomenal dude. What do you need from me? Tell me.
I just need a conversation with you mid-season at some point. Guaranteed? Is that done?
That you can put that on the record, my friend, anytime you want. And if I have time when we come down to DC, I'd love to get back on the radio with you because that was some fun times.
Let's do it. It's going to be awesome. Mike, thank you so much. Be safe getting back to New York, my friend.
Roach, you the man. Be well.
Pitch Pass.
This is your voice. This is my red, white, and blue. This is my anthem to you.
For more show information, go to pitchpass.com.